What's up guys, and welcome back to another Pokemon Sun and Moon video for the Legendaries of Alola. Now this is a speculation based video talking about what previous Legendaries we might see reappear in the Alola region for capture, and also talking about the new Legendaries that will be introduced in Generation 7, how many are we going to get, what types there will be, stuff like that. Not necessarily type, but you'll see when we get there. So first up, before we dive into sort of speculating about what we might get, we're going to look about what we have got, and that's a bit of a weird statement, but we're talking about the last capture appearance of every Legendary. So that's the last time they are available for capture in the games. So this includes stuff like events where the event item was given to allow you to access a location and then catch the Pokemon, like Darkrai for example. And it's excluding events, that just give you the Pokemon. Hopefully you guys understand that, and we'll just jump in now. Generation 1, there are no Pokemon here because they've all been, available for capture later on. Generation 2, Crystal was the only game in which you can actually capture Celebi. All the games, since then have just been simple events where they're like, here, have a Celebi. So Crystal's the only game in which Celebi could actually be caught. Well, that's not too surprising since, these mythical Pokemon don't actually, you don't get caught very often. And obviously in Crystal, it was a GS ball, so yeah, it was actually an event-based, Legendary anyway, so it's not too different. Generation 3, in Emerald, that was the last game we can actually catch a Mew. Obviously it could do it in Generation 1 via sort of glitches, but you could do, it's not really very relevant, whatever. But Emerald, obviously you could get the old map and go to an island to do it, so that was the last time you can actually catch Mew, and the rest of the time since there have been events, as I said. Then Generation 4, for Diamond, Pearl and Platinum, there are 3 Pokemon here, and these are Darkrai, Shaman and Arceus. This was the last time these 3 Pokemon could actually be caught. Obviously the Arceus one was up in the Hall of, I can't remember what it was called, but it was in that, it obviously had an event item to access it, as is the same with Darkrai and Shaman, but you can actually then catch the Pokemon. The Arceus event was never actually given out to my knowledge, so doesn't really count I suppose, but this is the last time they were available. Then in Generation 5, the only one we have here is for Black and White, and this is Victini, because obviously in the original games you had a Liberty Pass, and you can go to an island and capture Victini there. Didn't reappear in Black 2, White 2 to be captured, so that was that. And then we're on to Generation 6, which obviously where the bulk of the Legendaries are. In X and Y we have 6 Legendaries. This is the last time they were available for capture, which are Articuno, Zapdos, Moltres, and then Mewtwo. It's actually 7, I can't count. Mewtwo, Xerneas, Zygarde and Yveltal. So obviously, the 3 new Legendaries Gen 6, and then the ones from Gen 1 makes a lot of sense. And then also we had Oras, and Oras is when you can capture almost all the Legendaries. As you can see, we have the Legendary Beasts, we have Ho-Oh and Lugia, we have the Regis, the Latis, the Weather Trio, Deoxys, which the first time was actually capturable in game. Actually, I think you could do it in, you could do it in Generation 3 as well, but it wasn't an event one. It's actually a normal Pokemon in the Delta Emerald, Oras. Then we have Lake Trio, Creation Trio, as well as Heatran, Regigigas and Cresselia. Then Generation 5 we have the 3 main swords, Swords Trio, the Thunder Trio, or whatever it's called, Thunderous, Landorus and Tornadus, and then obviously the Tau Trio, Reshiram, Zekrom and Kyurem, all available on Oras, which leaves a few Pokemon left over which are event only, meaning that you can't actually capture them in any game. They're just given to you as an event, and these are Jirachi, Phione, Manaphy, obviously Phione is just breedable anyway, Manaphy, Keldeo, Meloetta, Genesect, Diancie, Hooper and Volcanion being the last few there. So that's the last time every Legendary appeared. So if you just take a brief, my theory would be, okay, if they're going to actually add any old Legendaries in, they will be Legendaries that you haven't been able to catch for a while. And that was sort of the theory for Oras. That's why they brought them all back for Oras, so you could get a lot of the Legendaries in sort of modern games. But you can see the only ones that we haven't actually been able to catch for a while are mostly mythical Pokemon, Celebi, Mew, Darkrai, Shaman, Arceus, Victini are all mythical Pokemon. And you don't really expect to be able to catch them anyway. So really, if anything, we're just looking, it's just going to be guesswork. Obviously, taking all the Legendaries from Oras, you could sort of speculate, there's not going to be that many sort of old Legendaries reappearing, because we've been able to just catch them all anyway, and we have Pokebank to easily transfer them. So it's not like, it's not going to be the same as Oras, where we're going to have loads and loads of Legendaries for capture. There might be 1 or 2 old Legendaries, maybe, possibly, they could throw in, but it doesn't seem very likely. So we'll see though, I suppose. So then actually we have one more generation to talk about, which is Generation 7. We have 3 legendaries revealed for Generation 7 so far. Well, actually the first 2 aren't revealed, but we know of them. Those are, actually they are revealed, I suppose. Solgaleo, Lunala, and Magiana. These are the 3 legendaries we know of. Now obviously the first 2 are the Sun and Moon Legendary respectively. However, Magiana is a mythical Pokemon, you know, it's like the equivalent of Diancie, Mew, Celebi, etc, etc, etc. So obviously we can talk about this when we actually look at, you know, what legendaries might be in Sun and Moon and what Generation 7 legendaries might be like. So we have, first up, you know, Solgaleo and Lunala, and it's likely there will be a 3rd member of the trio, possibly called Marshadow, who knows, but we don't know anything about this Pokemon so far, but it's likely there will be one and there'll be a trio there. It's also likely they will get a secondary trio to go along with this. Who knows what it's going to be about or related to, but I went through and did some stat looking up and looked at how many legendaries were introduced in each generation. Generation 1, obviously there was just the simple 4/5 original ones. Generation 2 was 5 legendaries and 1 mythical. Generation 3, there were 8 legendaries and 2 mythicals, you know, Generation 3 being Deoxys and Jirachi. Generation 4 is when it stepped up. We had 9 total legendaries and 5 mythical Pokemon, which are, we see, Darkrai, Shaymin, I've forgotten already, you know, you get Phione, Manaphy and Arceus, so the mythical step up there, and it sort of carried across into Generation 5 as well, where we had 9 normal legendaries and 4 mythicals. And then Generation 6 stepped down the legendaries, because a lot of people were saying there was so many legendaries in Pokemon, and no, they aren't actually legendary, you know, they're not special. And there were only 3 normal legendaries in Generation 6, being the main sort of trio. And then there were 3 mythicals, being Diancie, Hooper and Volcanion. So we could either see another 3 legendaries introduced here and just keep it at that and then have some mythicals, or they could say, right, we had a sort of a generation off of legendaries, let's throw a few extra ones in here, sprinkle some more in. So we could see, you know, the main trio and then a secondary trio, or we could just see the main trio, you know, they could just leave it at as the, I don't know, the Sun trio, the Solar trio, I don't know what you want to call it. But it's up for debate which one they choose. They could say, right, let's just keep it as 3 normal legendaries again, because, you know, why not? We're just not going to, you know, introduce loads. But then again, okay, you have the main sort of trio, that's your main story. What do you do in the after game? Okay, you can go and catch the last trio member, sure, but then that's it. You know, that was one of the big complaints for X and Y. There was not much of a post game, and, you know, introducing a second legendary trio might add some more after game to it. So who knows? But, you know, a second trio supporting that maybe, or just aside from that, is a possibility. And then we have the mythical Pokemon. As we said, Magiana is one of those. And as I said, in the last few generations, we've been getting consistent ones. Generation 4 had 5 mythical Pokemon, Generation 5 had 4, and then Generation 6 had 3. So it's possible we might just get 3 again, you know, and they'll just keep adding, you know, 3 mythicals per generation, because it's not too much, it's not too little. So we might see Magiana, and who knows what the other 2 will be. We have no idea so far. I'm not even going to speculate on them so far. But, you know, we could be saying 2 trios and then some mythicals, or 1 trio and some mythicals like X and Y. Who knows? What I want to know is, you know, how many legendaries would you like to see from Generation 7? Do you want to see more akin to Generation 4 and 5? Or would you like to see it sort of stay minimal like it was for X and Y and just have the 3, you know, the main trio and then some mythical Pokemon after that? But we're not done quite yet. We have to talk about old Pokemon. Okay, yes, sure. There's not too many we're going to put in here because we had loads in Oras, but there are a few that might do with mentioning. The first of these is Volcanion. Volcanion, I don't even know if it's out yet, you know, if the event's actually happened. I think it has, but it's possible Volcanion might not necessarily be available in Sun and Moon, but might have some sort of interaction somewhere in there. Either, you know, you take it along and you unlock a certain event, similar to how I think if you took a Spiky or Pichu, you know, you go and you get, you know, events activated somewhere. It's possible because obviously it hasn't been really interacted with any of the games so far, so it could happen. And then there's also Shaymin. Why do I mention Shaymin here? Well, Shaymin is, you know, to do with flowers and such like that. Hawaii is, you know, fairly well known for having, you know, flowers in your designs and such, so it's possible they might say, let's throw in a Shaymin interaction, / we'll have Shaymin available on one of the islands, because it hasn't been available for a long time, you know, via actual events. We haven't seen Shaymin since Generation 4. Now, you could say, well, we're going to get Diamond and Pearl remakes, you know, after Sun and Moon anyway. So why would they put, you know, any sort of Gen 4 legendaries now if we're just going to get them again then? Possible, but I might do a video talking about remakes, I guess, or sequels or whatever, in sort of due time. Who knows? But and then finally, I have Darkrai to mention here. Why am I mentioning Darkrai? It doesn't really have any relation to Hawaii or Sun and Moon or anything. Maybe the Moon somehow linking with Cresselia, but it hasn't actually been, if you like Shaman, it hasn't been available since Generation 4, and if they aren't going to do Generation 4 remakes, because it's not been that long since we've had Generation 4 come out, it feels like yesterday to me, so they might decide to skip it for a generation or two and do something else, in which case they might want to throw Darkrai in here and have some relation to that. Who knows? Those are just ideas I'm throwing out there, guys. What I want to know is, what do you expect from the Generation 7 Legendaries? How many do you think we're going to get? And what do you think they're going to be like? And also, would you like to see more sort of old Legendaries appear in Sun and Moon? Or do you think we should just leave them alone because we had Oras with loads of Legendaries anyway? Let me know what you think down below, and we'll see what you think in the comment section. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, but for now, this is it for me for today. I'll be seeing you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.